The Center for Gender Advocacy has one mandate, which is to fight gender oppression.
And so the Center for Gender Advocacy had instigated a trial against the État civil to increase trans rights in Quebec. And one of the things we wanted to do was to be able to change the birth certificate of your children if you yourself have changed your designation of sex.
Un des droits pour laquelle j'ai participé, c'était pour faire changer cet article pour pouvoir faire en bénéficier les personnes migrantes qui n'étaient pas citoyennes canadiennes.
You gotta remember the legal system is extremely discriminatory towards trans folks, and it is in itself very daunting, costly, and also just inaccessible for youth. Back in 2013, Quebec's legal context was extremely different. Trans folks needed to obtain gender-affirming surgery in order to get their legal gender marker changed. The law also only enabled trans folks above the age of 18 to transition legally. Additionally, non-citizens were unable to change their name nor their gender marker if they got citizenship, which would often take years on years on years. Non-binary folks were simply said completely excluded from the law. So it's like the whole system was rigged against trans folks.
I usually think of it like designation of sex is really just how you're seen legally. And so you're assigned a sex at birth, and then this has to be changed legally if you ever change it. And so you can identify with another gender or no gender, or be gender fluid. There's lots of different gender identities, but there's only, before this trial, there was only two designations of sex. There was either male or female. And it's that legal designation of sex that's reflected on all of the documents. So 6 years ago, I had my first child, and we were waiting to have our second child. I was in the process of legally changing my designation of sex at the time. And so I'd filed all the paperwork. I got a preliminary result, but I hadn't got the official result yet when my first child was born. And I filled out the birth certificate form as the mother. And the État civil returned a birth certificate with me listed as the father, because my legal change of designation of sex hadn't gone totally through yet. And so we started calling. So we started calling l'État civil. We talked to somebody, we talked to a superior, until finally we were given an answer that if you want to be the mother on your child's birth certificate, you have to change the law. And so we're like, great, this is exactly what we want to do. This is what they told us to do. So yeah, we're totally on board.
Alors moi, j'étais parmi les militantes pour le changement car j'étais une des personnes qui n'était pas bénéficiée de pouvoir changer mes cartes d'identité car je n'étais pas citoyenneté canadienne à l'époque. Depuis 2013, Aztec a commencé à militer pour la défense des personnes migrantes car on a eu des personnes qui ont été pour se faire déporter, des personnes trans qui n'avaient pas de carte d'identité pour pouvoir s'en procurer soit un job ou pour un appartement, surtout parce que le Québec c'est la seule province au pays qui, à ce moment-là, on ne pouvait pas changer notre nom sur notre carte d'identité.
Trans youth are basically being infantilized by the government. The government's presumably using all these stereotypes, claiming that trans youth are immature, they might regret their decision, etc., when it has been proven that teenagers who transition almost never regret it. And even amongst those who do eventually end up detransitioning, it's often because of transphobia itself and not because of regret. It's nonsense.
you know, we testified in 2015. We sort of just like let it go for a few years, or like it, you know, the lawyers continued to do their work and the Center for Gender Advocacy continued to do their work.
And then in the process, I had my second child and all the legal stuff had gone through. So I was designated as the mother of my second child, which made it even more ridiculous to be the mother of one child and the father legally of the other child. And so it really it really made a good point in the case. So we were really brought on, me and my partner Evie, just to like really highlight how ridiculous this is and to give a kind of a personal account of like just how our rights have been violated in the past and how we feel like our rights are being violated again in this instance. And the courts actually responded pretty quickly. They also agreed that this case was pretty ridiculous, and they actually agreed to change my first child's birth certificate if we would remove ourselves from the case. Right?
And, you know, of course our lawyers were amazing. They were like, this would get you what you want, get you what you need, and it would be much faster than waiting for this whole process to go through. But of course, it would weaken the case. And, you know, for us, it was like, no, again, we're doing this so that every trans person can be recognized for who they are on their legal documents, whether it's on the birth certificate of their child, whether it's on their documents as a refugee, whether it's a teenager wanting a change of name. You know, like, we really felt strongly that this needs to change for everybody, not just us, you know.
L'impact que ça donne quand on n'a pas notre carte d'identité qui concorde avec notre identité, c'est que quand on va trouver un emploi, qu'est-ce qu'on met sur le CV, sur le résumé? Est-ce que je mets mon nom de naissance ou est-ce que je mets le nom avec lequel je m'identifie? Mais je n'ai pas de cartes qui peuvent accompagner cette... Je l'ai vécu moi-même personnellement. Mon chèque doit sortir au nom de la personne que je ne suis pas. Donc, oui, c'est ça la différence d'une personne qui arrive ici et qui dit « Oh, ici, je vais au Canada, je vais me faire sentir respecté, mes droits sont quand même mis sur des mises, mais non. Non, il y a des entraves, il y a des obstacles. Puis Québec, surtout, là. C'est pas autant le gouvernement fédéral, mais c'est la province de Québec qui discrimine.
When we received the verdict in January, there were so many victories in that decision. You know, for designation of parents, for refugees, for folks without status, and some victories for youth.
Unfortunately, the government seeing this as an opportunity to attack trans youth and force these stereotypes about youth non-autonomy, chose to appeal this final point. So we're fighting back. And additionally, we're also counter-appealing the finding that apparently it was okay for trans folks going through a legal name change to have to go through a court process if a parent chooses to veto the name change.
Donc, qu'est-ce qu'on a gagné? Oui, on a gagné que les personnes peuvent, si longtemps qu'ils ont leur certificat de naissance, peuvent appliquer, soumettre l'application auprès de l'état civil. Mais si on passe, c'est ça la nuance, ils ne peuvent pas se l'en procurer. Comment est-ce qu'ils vont pouvoir réussir à changer leur nom quand ils n'ont pas un certificat pour valider les changements de nom de naissance?
When we talked about who would take different, media pieces and things, it felt so good to feel ready to be able to say, yes, I am non-binary. Yes, this trial directly affects me. Not only does it deeply affect my partner and my family, it also deeply affects me. And it deeply affects all trans folks. And, whether you're about to have kids, whether you're having kids, whether you had your kids 18 years ago, 20 years ago, it's so important. I realized how deeply important it felt to be able to say, this is who I am, and I have the right to be who I am. And that just be legally recognized. And it's just a piece of paper. And who we are is so much more important and so much deeper. and so much more complex than a piece of paper. But I realized how much not having that piece of paper can really make the journey harder. And there's no reason for that.
I'd say the best thing one can do concerning this appeal for the center to be victorious is just focus on saying that trans rights, especially trans youth rights, are 100% valid. It is totally okay to go to a trans rights protest, just even hanging a trans flag on your balcony, just showing small signs of love towards the trans community, just telling the Quebec government that we're not here to give up, and trans folks, non-binary folks, and intersex folks are here to stay, no matter what governments try to say.
And it's gonna still be so much of a process, but there was such a huge relief of being like, look, this judge, I know it's just one judge, but this judge said, yeah, you know what, that totally makes sense. Trans folks should be able to list themselves how they want on their kids' birth certificates and as they want, on their refugee and status documents. Come on. And just to be like, yeah, and so I can be who I am. It's okay. I don't need to feel bad about it. And everybody can be who they are. It's just that simple.